Johnston here, and we're talking about discrimination, particularly talking about racial discrimination. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had some interesting cases that have come up in my client work, so I thought I would share a couple of those. This is going to be the first of two videos. This first video is about communications, and more specifically about an employer who found in internal communications statements that were discriminatory on their face, racially discriminatory communications. Now, first I want to start off that by saying and trying to remind employers that they have a right to review communications conducted by employees using company equipment. So if they're using a company computer, if they're using a company email system, if they're using a company text messaging or internal messaging system, the employer has the right to review those communications at any time without notice and without reason. So by simply using a company communications device, the employer has the right to review that information. So my client raised this concern with me that they had found some racially discriminatory comments made by a senior employee who was discussing another employee. Now, fortunately, the other employee was unaware of these things and has left, and fortunately left with enough time ago that there is very likely going to be any sort of immediate fallout as a result of these communications. But it is something that the employer does need to address. So let's talk about a couple of things that are going on here. Number one, an employee using internal communications devices to write racially discriminatory statements creates a real problem for the company in the fact that that is a company document and it can be reviewed, it can be searched, it can be discovered in any kind of case or litigation or investigation by a government agency such as the EEOC or a state human rights organization. So it's not wise to allow that kind of behavior to happen. So what should you do? Well, first of all, you should treat it like any other case of discrimination. It should be investigated. It should be reviewed by outside counsel if necessary. And the employee who made the statement should be counseled. Now, the employee who received the communication should also be counseled because you want to have a conversation with somebody that says, hey, by the way, receiving this also is not a good thing. So if you receive a communication like this, you should bring that communication to the attention of your supervisor so that something can be addressed. In this particular case, my client kind of sat on this information for quite some time, and that's not a good thing. It has a tendency to make lawyers like me really, really anxious when things like that are happening. So the sooner you address it, the better off you're going to be. The sooner you discover it, the better off you're going to be. So, most employers do not spend their time reviewing employee internal communications. Most employers and managers simply don't have the time. So that's why it's incumbent upon the culture, the training that is conducted with employees that says, look, if you receive a communication like this, you can handle it on your own, okay, for the first time off. Say, hey, look, man, that's not really cool. That's not what we believe. By the way, it's also probably illegal. And don't send me a communication like that ever again. So you've put the initial stop on it, and maybe that will be enough. But if it happens again, the employer should be instructing their employees to raise these concerns with management and ownership so that they can be addressed. The worst part about a company culture is not that it is suddenly a toxic place to work. Toxicity is something that grows slowly over time. It's something that is one step, okay? And everybody's like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then it's a second step. No, it's really not a big deal. Well, 40 steps down the road, each one of them, when you've said, oh, it's not that big a deal, now you have a culture. Now you have a workplace in which racist and or discriminatory and or sexist, whatever kind of discrimination, that becomes acceptable, that becomes permitted. If not explicitly permitted, certainly implicitly permitted. And that can put some employees at a discrete disadvantage, and it creates the hostile workplace environment that is very, very hard to correct. So you want to instruct employees to, number one, be aware that their communications are and can be monitored. So they don't have any expectation of privacy on company provided equipment. Number two, obviously don't make statements like that. Number three, if you receive a statement like that, you need to address it first time with the sender, and the second time it should be addressing it with your supervisors so that we can address this problem before it becomes a large scale issue. And number four, each person in the company, from the owner to the most recent hire, they're responsible for workplace culture. And you want to have a workplace culture that is welcoming, that is comfortable for people to work in. And small little comments, racist comments, discriminatory comments, these things will undermine that. Even if you say, oh, it's not that big a deal, it becomes a big deal over time. So be mindful of these things, work with your employees, and if you are the employer, you want to be taking an occasional look. Just run a search on terms that you don't want to see used within your workplace. In the meantime, I hope you like these videos. A lot of my clients are saying they really enjoy seeing these videos and receiving these videos. So if you do, please hit the little subscribe button right here. I also wouldn't mind a few comments down in the section below letting us know what's going on, what you would like to hear about, what you would like to see. And there's going to be some more video content over here. So be sure you check back regularly. In the meantime, have a good day. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.